Texas, 1896. As a publicity stunt, two locomotives were set on the same track, facing each other, and run head-on from rest. Each one weighed over 100 tons. They picked up speed across 3 kilometers of track. And here is what I want you to watch, not the trains, but these two bars. They measure the energy stored in the motion. Faster and faster, and notice the bars don't just rise, they shoot up, because energy grows with the square of the speed. Then, impact. The reporters of the day called it like an exploding bomb. And the physics agrees. At the moment of collision, the two trains carried roughly 200 million joules of kinetic energy. That is the whole point of this chapter. Motion carries energy. And to change that energy, something has to do work. Two ideas, kinetic energy and work, and one theorem that locks them together. Kinetic energy and work. In the last chapters we asked where things go and how fast. Now we ask a different question, how much energy does the motion carry and what changes it? Speed this car up, and its energy reservoir fills. That reservoir is our guide for the whole chapter. Let's first ask what energy even is. Energy is just a number we attach to the state of things, a scalar, no direction. Change the state, and the number changes. What makes it priceless is one deep law of our universe. Think of energy like money spread across several bank accounts. You can move it from one to another, even electronically, with nothing material actually flowing, but the grand total never changes. Watch. Energy slides out of the kinetic account, into potential, into thermal, transformed and transferred, yet not 1 joule is ever created or destroyed. No exception has ever been found, anywhere. This chapter zooms in on just one account, kinetic energy, the energy of motion, and just one way to move money in and out of it, work. Kinetic energy is the energy a body has because it is moving. The faster it goes, the more it carries. Sitting still, it has none. For a mass m at speed v, kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared. Its unit is the joule. A 3 kg duck flapping along at 2 meters per second carries 1/2 times 3 times 2 squared, exactly 6 joules. Now the single most important feature of that formula, the square. Roll a car at speed v and its tank fills to 6 joules. Fine. Now double the speed, just double, and the kinetic energy doesn't double. It quadruples, all the way to 24 joules, because v gets squared. That is why a small rise in speed is a huge rise in energy, and why high-speed crashes are so violent. Remember this tank. From here on, every theorem in the chapter is just a statement about how its level changes. So how do we change the level in that tank? With a force. Push on a moving body and you speed it up or slow it down, you transfer energy to it or from it. That transfer, done by a force, is what physics calls work. Energy poured into the body is positive work, the tank rises. Energy drawn out of it is negative work, the tank drops. Work is a scalar, measured in joules, exactly like the energy it moves. But be careful, this is not the everyday meaning of work. Shove with all your might against a solid wall. You strain, you sweat, you tire, and yet the wall doesn't move, so in the language of physics you have done exactly zero work on it. No motion, no energy transferred. The rule is simple: no displacement, no work. Now let's pin down exactly how much work a force does when there is motion. Suppose a constant force F pulls a crate that slides a distance d, but the force is tilted at an angle phi to the motion. Split the force into one part along the displacement, one part perpendicular to it. Only the part along the motion actually transfers energy. The perpendicular part rides along doing nothing. So the work is the force times the distance times the cosine of the angle between them, f d cosine phi. That cosine carries the sine for free. Under 90 degrees the work is positive, it speeds the crate up. At exactly 90, 0. Past 90, the force opposes the motion and the work is negative, it slows the crate down. And here is the theorem that pays off the entire chapter. The net work done on a body equals the change in its kinetic energy. Whatever work you pour in or draw out, the tank moves by exactly that much. Two spies move a 225 kg safe 8.5 meters across a frictionless floor. Spy 1 pushes 12 newtons at 30 degrees below horizontal. Spy 2 pulls 10 newtons at 40 degrees above. The safe starts from rest. How fast is it going at the end? Each force does f d cosine phi. Spy 1 contributes about 88 joules, Spy 2 about 65. Gravity and the floor's normal force act straight up and down, perpendicular to the slide, so they do nothing. Add the rest, 153 joules of work. By the theorem, all 153 joules become kinetic energy. Set 1/2 mv squared equal to the work, solve for v, and the safe glides off at about 1.17 meters per second. No acceleration, no time, just energy in, speed out. Gravity is a constant force, mg, pointing straight down. So the work it does as a body moves through a displacement d is simply mgd times the cosine of the angle between them. Throw a ball straight up and watch the tank. On the way up, gravity points opposite the motion, the angle is 180 degrees, the cosine is -1. Gravity does negative work, minus mgd, draining the kinetic energy. At the very top the tank hits empty and the ball stops. On the way down, gravity points along the motion, angle 0, cosine +1. Now it does positive work, plus mgd, refilling the tank. The ball returns to your hand with exactly the kinetic energy it left with. And one clean shortcut: if a body starts and ends at rest, say you lift something slowly onto a shelf, your applied force transfers in exactly as much energy as gravity transfers out. The two works are equal and opposite, however jerkily you lift. A spring always pushes its free end back toward its relaxed length. Stretch it or squeeze it, and it pulls or pushes back, harder the further you go. That's Hooke's law. The force is minus k times x, the minus sign meaning it always opposes the displacement. Because the force grows steadily with x, its graph against position is a straight line. And the work a force does is the area under that graph. For a spring, that area is a triangle. Watch the area sweep out as the end moves. Its value is 1/2 kx initial squared minus 1/2 kx final squared. If the block ends up closer to the relaxed point, the spring does positive work, farther away, negative. Let's use it. A 400-gram canister slides at 0.5 meter per second into a spring of stiffness 750 newtons per meter. How far does it compress the spring before it's momentarily stopped? All the canister's kinetic energy goes into the spring, so its lost kinetic energy equals minus 1/2 kd squared. Solve for d, it works out to about 1.2 centimeters. A tidy result, and we never touched a single force equals mass times acceleration equation. What if the force isn't constant, it changes as the body moves? We slice the path into tiny steps, treat the force as constant on each one, multiply force by that little distance, and add up all the strips. Make the strips thinner, and the staircase melts into the smooth area beneath the curve. That limit is an integral. The work is the integral of f of x with respect to x, same idea as the spring, now for any force at all. Push this through Newton's second law, and out drops the work-kinetic energy theorem again, net work equals change in kinetic energy. It was never just for constant forces. It holds for every force you will ever meet. Two people can do the same work, one in a second, one in an hour. Power is what tells them apart, how fast the work gets done. Over an interval it's work over time, at an instant it's the derivative, and beautifully, it equals force times velocity times the cosine of the angle between them. Here's a power gauge. A force pulling along the motion supplies energy, the needle swings positive. Drag a 100 kg block at a steady 5 meters per second with a 122 Newton force angled 37 degrees up, and you are feeding it work at about 487 watts. But a force can also fight the motion. Push backward on a sliding box, and you draw energy out, the needle goes negative. Picture a box with two forces, one feeding it 6 watts, one removing 6 watts. Add them, and the net power is 0. The needle parks dead center. No net energy flows, so the box's kinetic energy and its speed hold perfectly steady. And the deepest case, a force exactly perpendicular to the velocity, like the inward pull on a whirling stone, does 0 work and delivers 0 power, no matter how strong it is. The cosine of 90 degrees settles it. So, the whole chapter on one slide. Kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared, and it grows with the square of the speed. Work is force times distance times cosine phi, only the part along the motion. The work-energy theorem says net work equals the change in kinetic energy. Gravity and springs give clean formulas. A varying force is the area under its curve, and power is the rate of doing work. If you carry one habit out of this chapter, make it this rhythm. Add up all the work done on the body. Use it to update the kinetic energy tank. Then read off the new speed. Sum the work, update K, read the speed, it skips the time, skips the acceleration, and often beats forces hands down. We've learned to move energy in and out of a moving body. Next, we'll store it in height, in a stretched spring, and watch it slosh back and forth without ever being lost. That's Potential Energy, Chapter 8. If this made energy click, subscribe, and I'll see you there.